So we are going to start chapter 2 here, which means we are going to get into the specific REST APIs or specific services Azure AI provides. And the first one we are going to look at is a text content moderator. So one of the things with this particular service is that this is going to get obsolete pretty soon. By the time you watch this video, this may not be existing. And this may not be part of the certification as well by the time you watch this video. So what I'm trying to recommend here is that just watch and try to understand the concept. Don't worry about doing the practical in this particular video. So content moderator. So basically we'll be discussing two types of content moderator. One is text content moderator and then images. Technically speaking, images can be extrapolated to videos as well. Videos are nothing but a set of images in sequence, but we will have a different video stream based content moderator later. But essentially the idea is exactly the same. So first we will look at text content moderator, fairly straightforward. Before we get into the code of content moderator or any AI services, we need to understand a couple of things and we need to do a couple of things. First is we need to create an Azure account, Azure cloud account. So if you're new to Azure, it is just a cloud provider from Microsoft. Among a lot of other services, it provides the AI services as well. Basically, we need to create a cloud account if you don't have it already. So Azure account creation, that is the first step. To create the cloud account, you will have to provide a credit card. They don't take any money out of it. And if you're doing it for the first time using the card you're using, the credit card or debit card, whatever it is, you will have $300 credit, which means that you can experiment any service as long as it doesn't take more than $300. They change this every now and then. For some of the cards it doesn't work, especially if you have used a particular card before. Normally it works for a new card and it'll ask your permission if it is taking more than $300 or any of the service you are starting takes more than $300. One thing you need to be careful is that this $300 credit is only valid for 30 days. After that, normally what is being done is shut down your services, which takes money. But otherwise, Azure by default, unlike Amazon Web Services, doesn't take money from your account unless you explicitly allow. That is one thing I like about Azure, especially for beginners when they experiment things with the cloud account. But be aware that whatever we are going to do cost money, especially when you call the APIs. Certain services like Azure Search, AI Search, the cognitive search, very expensive service. We'll see that later in this training. But for the time being, the content moderator we are going to use is not very expensive and we'll be using a free version of that service. A free tier is available for content moderator. We'll be using that. But not all the service has free tier. So long story short, you have to create an Azure cloud account. That's the first step. And while doing that, you will have to put your credit card and nothing will be charged to your credit card until you explicitly allow it. And initially, you have a $300 credit if you're using that card for the first time. That's the summary. Now, once that is done, what is next? Next, we will be creating a content moderator Azure AI service inside the Azure account we have created. So this is the content moderator service in Azure AI services. Azure AI services. That's where we will have our REST API. This will be a REST API endpoint. So basically what we will get when we create this particular service right here is a URL and a key. Remember, the REST API is nothing but URLs and keys and things like that. It's just like any other web page. We have seen the NASA example. Like that, the service we are creating is also a REST API, which we will be calling from our Python application. So inside the cloud account, we will do this, creating the content moderation service, the Azure AI service. Now what is next? So once that is done, we will call these REST APIs from our Python application. This is our Python application, which uses the content moderation SDK from Azure. So the content moderation service REST APIs are abstracted in the content moderation SDK. So we'll be using that SDK APIs. So essentially, we'll be calling these REST APIs from the Python code we are having. Now, what this content moderator does, just like the name says, it moderates specific content. It finds out personally identifiable information in the text you're giving. I'm talking about the text version as of now. That is the example we are going to see. And it'll find out any profanity, any bad words, swearing and things like that within the text. It finds out other information. We will see the documentation, complete documentation of this particular service, and we'll see what are the capabilities it has and what is the JSON value it returns. Now, in summary, what we do is we give to this REST API right here, we give a bunch of text or a chunk of text. So the input is text. It could be any type of text. And what is the output? The output from the API. So this is the output. The output from the API is a feedback on that text. Does the text contain personally identifiable information like email, phone number, names, address, etc.? So that will be given in a JSON format. Remember, REST APIs always return JSON files. Same thing here, just that the content of the file will be different. And this is exactly what we are going to do from this Python application. We are going to give it some text and get some output out of it, information about this text. So essentially, this part, this API, behaves like a human being, actual human being who reads that text we are giving and look at the text and find out all the necessary information about that text which we are interested in, like PII or personally identifiable information, then profanity and things like that. That is a short explanation of text content moderator. We'll see the code and we'll create a service and we'll see the working version shortly. So the first thing, like I said, what we are going to do is to create an Azure account. I already have an Azure account, but I'll just show you how to do it in a very quick way. I'm not going to create an Azure account, but we'll show you how it looks and how it feels. So in any search engine, you can simply search for create Azure account. So it should come to one of these particular link. Start your free account, free credit for 30 days. This is a free credit I was talking about. So assuming that you don't have an Azure account, you can simply click here. It's a sponsored link, but you can click on any such link. Start free or pay as you go. And you need a Microsoft account. And there are other signing options like GitHub, etc. If you don't have one, you can create a Microsoft account. And all you need to do is to follow the prompts. At some point, it will ask for a valid credit card or debit card. So that is the catch in this whole thing. But it won't charge anything, but it'll be a mandatory thing because you will be using compute. So they need to make sure that you are a genuine user and things like that. That's why it is mandatory. For all cloud providers, it's a mandatory thing. So as I said, I already have an account and I'm going to show you how it looks once you have done all the steps required to create an account. So once you have created an account, this is how it looks. So different Azure services you can see, for example, content moderator and things like that is here. Azure AI service is just tip of the iceberg. You can have a lot many things like virtual machines, storage, networking, all kind of cloud stuffs. But we will be focusing on Azure AI in this particular training. We'll be creating different Azure AI service in this particular training. And if you go to AI and machine learning, you will see different AI services. Feel free to explore it because these are things we will see in this particular training. Regarding the AI services, not sure if I have mentioned before, some of the services needs special permission from Microsoft. For example, Face APIs. So if you have a new account, they may ask some special permission to use that particular service. Some of the services I have requested permission for training purposes, they have approved. Some services like locally running containers, etc., they have not given me permission because that is only available for big corporates. But I have seen the team is very responsive and very good in responding to our request. Overall, I had pretty good experience with the team. But some of the services which I'm going to show you, you need special permission if you have a new account. That is all I wanted to tell you in short. But these are the services, and in this particular session, we are going for content moderator. I have clicked on content moderator. So if you look here, all services, then Azure AI services, and within that we have content moderator. They change these names every now and then, but you can simply search here for content moderator if you want. Hopefully they won't change the name of content moderator by the time you watch this video, but it's not completely impossible. As I mentioned before, a world is rapidly changing. I have not seen anything in the industry changing this fast in the last 25 years. So anything can change anytime, but the idea, the concepts we are learning remains intact. That's what matters. So right now, this is called content moderator and it is under Azure AI service in Azure. So I have created a content moderator service already. So I'm going to click on that, and this is the URL for that particular service, the endpoint, the REST API endpoint, and you'll get a key here once you create the service. So normally almost all the services has two keys. I'll show you how to use this key and call the service. So service endpoint is this and the key is this. You can copy the key by clicking here. So this is a common pattern with all the AI services in Azure or any other cloud platform. You create the service and you get an endpoint like this and a key. And using this endpoint and key, you can reach to the service and call the service endpoint and getting it to do whatever it is supposed to do. If you remember correctly, with the NASA service, we have had the exact same pattern. We had a URL like this and we got a key as well from the NASA. And we have downloaded that image, that beautiful image from the NASA. Same thing we are doing here, but the essential service is going to moderate content for that rather than downloading an image like we did in the case of NASA. But the technique or the transport we are using to call the API is exactly same. So we have this content moderator service in Azure AI services. Like I said, it's a typical pattern we are seeing here. After creating the service, we got an endpoint and a key. Now, if you remember in the previous diagram, we have seen the next task is to write the program to call the service with our custom data. That's what we are going to do next. And we have the sample code available here to call the content moderator. Again, if you are new to Python, I really recommend my previous training, the Python training. In the beginning itself, I have mentioned that training is a prerequisite for this particular training, the basic Python training. So going to the code line by line. So this is the text content moderator. So this will be moderating text. I'll be finding out things inside the text we are giving. And the documentation is this particular link. I'll be sharing this particular code with you while you watch the training. And these are some of the imports which we will be using. Some are optional and these are standard Python import, not getting into the details of it. If you want, you can check the respective documentation. So this is one of the Azure specific import which handles the credentials. And to have that import correctly working, you need to do a pip install Azure core. That's why I have commended that. So all the pip needed, whether you are using Python virtual environment or not, you need to have this particular pip install. So in this case, I have already done a global pip install. I don't have a virtual environment. So teaching virtual environment and all the nitty-gritties are not the focus of our training here. But to get this particular library in, this is a pip install you need. So this is a common practice I'll be doing. So you can use either pip install or anything which works for you within the virtual environment or not. If you're not sure about what is a virtual environment, that's completely fine. You can just watch my previous training and learn about pip install. Basically, we are downloading this particular library using pip install. This is another library in the code. Some of the libraries we are not using, that's why it is grayed out. Doesn't matter much. I have commented out some of the code to make it look simpler. The grayed out ones we are not using, but in the original code it was there. Feel free to comment it out if you want, but in case if you want to change the code and use some of the advanced features, you may need that. So the main thing we need to focus is line number 15, which is the actual content moderator client. Everything else is kind of supporting this one particular module right here. So this is a module which create a content moderator client and interact with the REST API we are going to see. Again, the respective pip install is right here. It's a pretty big line, not a very good coding practice. So this is the pip install required for that particular library right there. Another pip install you need to run. This code is MS REST for the REST authentication. And here is the content moderator endpoint we have seen in the Azure console. So we have used that particular endpoint. The endpoint we have created, the service we have created, that is this endpoint right here. So if you look here, so this is the endpoint. And this is the key right here. So when you do this particular example, you will have to create your own endpoint and your own key. So this is where we create the client. This is a client object we are creating right here. And this is a client object which abstracts the REST API of the content moderator. And what we are passing into it, we are passing this particular URL and this particular key, essentially the input to the content moderator client. We are using the cognitive service credentials object to convert the subscription key to a credential service object, cognitive service credentials. But apart from that detail, essentially we are passing this and this to this particular function to get this object. Now onwards, we will be using this client object to do all the actions. Inside that client object, it will be calling the REST APIs exposed in this particular URL, just like we did for that NASA REST API. Line number 35 and 36 is just a path join, nothing specific about it. If you want, you can comment it out and hard code the path. I have the files which I'm interested in this folder. Let's have a quick look at that particular folder so that you will be less confused about what we are going to do next. So this is the content moderator code example. This is a file we are looking at right now. And in here, this is the content we are trying to moderate. Content moderator.txt, that is the file we are trying to access. So if I open that file, this is the content of the file. So there is an address here and there are a couple of spelling mistakes in the file. We have purposefully given that. And there is an email and phone number. Personally identifiable information is there inside the file. And there is a little bit of profanity as well. So there is profanity in the file. So this is a file worth moderating. And this is the content we are going to give to the AI service. And we are going to have a look at what is the response it is giving. Whether it's able to find out the mistakes. Is it able to find out the personally identifiable information? And then finally the profanity piece. So we have seen a file with the content we would like to moderate. Now we are going to use the Azure service to do it in the next lesson.